Breaking the rule of two when it comes to outdoor adventures, I ventured deeper into the woods located somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. I won't go into detail on the exact location, just know that this place shouldn't be explored. Luckily, I did see some nearby campers along my way, so I wasn't completely alone. Anyway, while I was venturing, I stumbled upon a cave I could see from off the side of the trail. Gazing at it, I noticed an old beat trail heading towards it. I glanced at my watch to see if I had enough time to explore it before the sun set. Estimating, I guessed I had a good 2 hours until then. I soaked up the lowering rays of the afternoon sun, feeling overjoyed until I didn't. Walking off the trail towards the cave, something felt off. The birds didn't seem to chirp as cheerfully, and the happiness that had filled me withered away, being replaced with unease, like a dark pit of dread gathering from the back of my throat to the bottom of my stomach. However, being a fear junkie, I pressed on as it filled me with curiosity. And yeah, I probably would be the first to die in a horror movie. Anyway, doing so gave me some type of dumb ego boost, as if I was brave. What I would encounter would wipe that all away, and the dark pit in my stomach would spread to every inch of my frame. I finally reached the entrance of the cave, and I noticed graffiti covering the outside of it, while the cave itself was blocked by an iron gate. It must have been some old mine of some sort that the Forest Service blocked off for safety, which wasn't uncommon for this area, which is not too far off from an old, repurposed mining town. Some teens must have tagged it at some point. None of the graffiti was very interesting, but being tired from the hike, I sat on a small rock nearby while leaning my back on the side of the cave entrance. A stone-cold shiver snuck up my spine, causing me to lean forward and glance back. It felt like someone had shoved snow down my shirt, but it was dry, and the wall was nothing special. The eerie feeling grew even more to the point my bravery wore off. So I stood up and was about to head out when I saw some carved words into the stone that had been covered by some graffiti, making them hard to make out. Squinting my eyes, I read, "Leave before it follows you." A sound clatter echoed from the cave. My eyes shot towards it. Seeing nothing but the dark abyss behind the iron bars, I verbally said, "Nope," while turning my back to the cave and walking away. That's when the iron bars behind me squeaked, and I turned around to see an animal behind the gate. I stood in utter confusion, wondering how on earth a deer was able to get back there. Maybe there's another entrance, I thought to myself, intrigued. I walked back towards the cave. While doing so, the deer just stood there, watching me. But as I got closer, the smell that came with it was atrocious, to the point I was holding back the contents of my stomach with all I had. This stopped me in my tracks, as well as the dark pit inside hitting its max, causing my legs to quiver. The words from the carved message replayed inside of my head. "Leave before it follows you." Swiftly, I began to turn around when the deer's head snapped sideways as it opened its jaw to a horrid length. Biting the iron bars, it shook like an old blender. In fear, I watched, too paralyzed to even move as the deer then began to slam its body in between the gaps of the iron bars. I could hear the bones popping and twisting as it began to push its way through. The setting sun reflected off the matted hair of the deer, disheveled and dirty. I knew I had to run, but I felt stuck in place out of fear or by something else. Stuck, just gazing upon this horrid sight. That's when I noticed as the deer's hooves passed the bars, they began to morph into a humanoid hand with slender fingers. Screeching, accompanied with the cracking noises. Upon sight, I figured it was a skinwalker. This was more than enough for me to gather my strength to move my legs and run out of there. I ran down from where the cave stood, and I could see the main trail in sight. Sadly, I also noticed the sun being covered by the surrounding mountains, and in less than half an hour, I would be in complete darkness with that thing. Screeches followed behind me, only growing louder by the moment, as if the thing had broken free from the cave. My back foot kicked a rock, which went directly under my front one, spraining my ankle and slamming my torso and chest into the dirt below. Throwing up out of fear and pain, I glanced behind me to see the cold, reflection of the rising moon bouncing off the humanoid creature, who was on all fours running directly at me. Scrambling to my feet, I carried on running away, thinking these were my last moments and my life flashed before my eyes. That's when I remembered the campers who had passed on the way up. They were my only hope, as I couldn't outrun this thing for long. I quickened my pace and eagerness as a glimpse of hope shone through the fear and pain. Their campfire flashed off of the pine trees in the distance. "Help!" I screamed, trying to get the campers' attention to see if the group of people would scare the beast off. Getting closer, I ran into their campsite, dirty, panting, and in pain. There were about 4 older guys who all stood there confused and in shock at the sight I posed in front of them. Trying to gather the air to tell them what was happening, one of the men pulled out a pistol, aiming it at me. I held up my hands as I thought he was going to shoot. That's when I heard a round fire coming from it, and fully expecting to hit me. I felt some relief knowing that I wouldn't die by whatever was chasing me. However, the bullet flew past me, and before I could react, the humanoid thing pounced from behind me onto the man who held the gun. He must have hit it as blood squirted onto my face as it flew by. All the men began trying to save their friend with whatever they could, with even one using a hot metal s'more stick that was being cleaned off in the fire to pierce a hole in the side of it. The beast let out a horrid sound before biting the neck of the man and ripping it off. Knowing there was nothing I could do to help, I booked it back to the main trail, feeling bad for leading it to them. All I was hoping is that I left soon enough now before it could follow me. The sun by now was completely gone, and I was running with only the light of the moon to light my way. Behind me, I could hear the silent screams of the men, which led to a dreadful silence. My only hope was that it forgot about me, but my optimism never seemed to pan out usually. My red car shined like dark blood in the lighting. Scrambling my hands through my pocket, I grabbed the keys and clicked the unlock button. However, I forgot the light would turn on. Behind me, I could hear the thing roar as it seemed to be attracted to the light. Realizing how dumb I was, I ran and jumped inside my car, and with the engine roaring, I took off without looking back at all, as I didn't need any more fuel for my nightmares. I immediately drove to the nearest police department and told them of what had taken place, and they didn't believe me at first and seemed to laugh it off as some type of sick prank. However, as they examined the blood on my clothes a little more closely, they noticed it didn't look fake. They asked me to lead them to where it happened, and I refused. No way I was going to go anywhere near that place ever again. I told them where it was located, and they had me stay at the police station for the time being as I received some medical attention. Afterwards, I ended up falling asleep, waking up to 2 people who looked like they were in between being park rangers and federal agents. "That was some bear attack, wasn't it? Do you have any serious injuries?" one of them asked. That wasn't a bear attack. It was some type of humanoid deer," I screamed. "We already tracked and put the bear down for your information. You didn't happen to personally know those other campers out there. We saw you mentioned in the report there were 4 of them, which is strange as we only found 2 bodies. Then what was left after them after being mauled by the bear wasn't enough to properly ID them. We're still working on running the plates on the truck that we assume belonged to them. Also, the bodies showed patterns of being mauled by a bear. You must have fallen and hit your head so hard that it jumbled up your memory," the other replied. No. I wish that I had. I remember everything, so don't you dare try to gaslight me on this." "Whatever you say. You'll see the full information of what we found on the news in a day or 2 if you're more likely to believe that. I wish we could stay and chat more, but there are some reporters that need to be attended to," one said as they proceeded to walk away. Confused and in pain, I sat there, wondering what they meant by it being a bear attack. There's no way the evidence could have pointed to a bear attack. I must seem crazy to them, but they got it all wrong. There wasn't much left I could do, and I was allowed to leave the police station, so I went home. I waited for the news to come and interview me for my side of the story, but they never did. Then the news story finally broke, and it read, 4 men killed tragically in camping accident and bear attack. I thought to myself that at least they got the number of people correct, but as I continued to read it, it said that 2 men died while exploring a closed-off mine, saying they had broken in and some boulders came down on top of them. This wasn't right at all, I thought to myself. Those guys were nowhere near that cave when that thing attacked. Unless it must have dragged them there. I wanted to find a way to see the bodies for myself to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. But they were cremated before anyone who wasn't an official could get near them. Now I just sound like a crazy person when I tell this story. But just know this. Just because the news reports that someone drowned in a lake or got lost while hiking doesn't make it true or unaltered. It could be true or cover up, as the best lies are sprinkled with truths. At least I'm able to get this off my chest, but those words will always run through my head. Leave before it follows you.